Hello guys, this is Prashant here, your strategy consultant, and what I'm going to cover in this video is a small excerpt from my book Ternicode, Law of Three. What we are going to specifically talk about is fallacies and errors in leadership, so stay tuned. When it comes to something like leadership, every leader can make an error, because to err is human, and even a leader is a human being at the end of the day. So when we talk about errors and fallacies, they are too many in number, and what you can see on the screen is a list of approximately 40 different errors and fallacies. They can be largely classified into logical fallacies, argumentative errors, and cognitive errors. What is meant by this classification is, it is a logical fallacy when something that you say or do doesn't stand the test of logic. So that's called a logical fallacy. Argumentative errors is when you are trying to convince someone about something and it doesn't make sense. So that becomes argumentative error. And when we talk of cognitive errors, it's basically about our own way of thinking or our own perspective, which may not be right. That's what is called as cognitive error. And if I have to read out a few of them that are shown on the screen, they are like affirming the consequent, denying the antecedent, ad hominem. We have various other types of fallacies and errors like paradoia, false dichotomy, appeal to authority, fallacy, etc. Now, why do you need to understand these kind of fallacies and errors is that we encounter this day in and day out in our lives, in our daily routines, and we might not specifically observe or recognize it. Some things can be recognized, and sometimes we do, but most of the times they just pass through you unrecognized. And once you're made aware of it, you will be able to identify people that you're dealing with committing such kind of fallacies and errors, as well as you yourself can avoid committing or falling prey to such type of fallacies and errors. For those interested to know in depth, you would want to pause the screen right now and have a note of all the 40 odd errors that's listed on the screen before proceeding further. So before we proceed any further, I would want to run through a few definitions or simulated examples so that you get a hang of it, of what do these fallacies and errors mean, and how they affect, how can they affect anyone in their lives. So for the sake of example, let us take something called as a burden of proof. Now, this particular kind of fallacy occurs when when someone who is making a claim puts the burden of proof on the other party to disprove what they are claiming. I do understand that the definition might not make sense initially, so let me give you a real example. It's like, let's say that let's assume that I say that I believe in fairies and fairies do exist. Now, I'm making a claim over here. Now, probably you would ask, well then, can you prove it? Now, in response to your question, if I say that I don't have to prove that fairies exist, if you can't prove that fairies don't exist, so That's what is meant by burden of proof. I'm making a claim which I can't prove or I don't want to prove, and I am countering your question about proof by putting the burden of proof on you, that since you cannot disprove it, hence I'm true or I'm right. A more real world example would be something like an employee can claim harassment without any proof and can argue with the employer. And what happens in such a scenario is, since the employer has no way of disproving that there was no harassment, the burden of proof lies with the employer, and the employee can go on and make such falsified claims. That's a real world scenario that this could happen. Another type of fallacy is called as circular reasoning. In this kind of fallacy, what occurs is when the reasoning begins with a claim that they're trying to conclude with. For example, let us say a statement like this: whatever is less dense than water will float, because such objects won't sink in water. Now, does this make any sense? It's the first part of the statement is connected to the second part of the statement, and it goes on into a circle. A better real world example would be a disgruntled employee might claim that this company that I was working with is no good. It's the worst company on the planet because I don't like the people and the policies there. Can you see how it is circular? The guy doesn't like the company, so the company is not good, or the company is not good because the guy doesn't like the policy. So it goes in circles. So that's called as circular reasoning. One more interesting fallacy is called as the continuum fallacy. It's also called as the line drawing fallacy or the bald man fallacy. In this type of fallacy, what happens is, just because something is like in between, vague, or not clear, unclear, doesn't make it to be untrue. That's what this fallacy is about. For example, if I make an ambiguous statement like, I have been able to swim across any body of water that I have ever come across. So that means that there is no body of water on the planet that I cannot swim across. Are you getting this point here? Just because I have been able to swim across a few bodies of water, maybe some lakes, ponds, etc., I'm claiming that there's no body of water which I cannot swim across. Now, what if I'm thrown into the Pacific Ocean or the English Channel? Will I be really able to swim across? So that's the continuum fallacy over here. And this kind of fallacy is often used in corporate scenarios, in conference rooms and boardrooms, as well as in the media, where certain vague things are put out in front of the audience, and certain claims are made which may not be totally untrue because it is vague. So that's what is the continuum fallacy. Let's take one more fallacy, which is called as the proving too much fallacy. Here what happens is, it refers to an argument that reaches conclusions which contradicts the things that are known to be true, or contradicts the premises in a particular argument. That is to say, let's say if we say that I have seen too many marriages ending up in unhappy lives or divorce, that means all marriages are bad. Now, that's a statement where the opposite logic can also be applied, saying that if I've seen most marriages to be successful, that means all marriages are good. So you can't generalize things, and that's what is meant by this particular fallacy, proving too much. One more example would make it more clear. Fire is a bad thing because there are many fires which burn down property and lives. Now, there are many fires which can burn down property and lives. That's true. But that doesn't mean that fire is bad altogether. You can make a contradictory statement over the same thing, where fire is really good, and if you take the necessary care, it's a great tool for humanity. Again, not entirely true, and the person is trying to prove too much to put across his premise or argument. That's what this fallacy is about. Next one is the hindsight bias. It is one of the most common cognitive biases that I think almost everyone has encountered several times. There can be instances where we might say that once the match is over, one can say that I knew it that this team is gonna win this match, and that's what happened. So this is putting things in hindsight and claiming that I was already aware of it. That's one example of hindsight bias. Or saying that I know which direction the market is going. I already knew which direction the market is going. I knew that there's going to be a major stock crash around this time. So this is hindsight. The event has already occurred, and then you're trying to claim that you already knew it. That's what is called as hindsight bias. The next one here is the availability heuristic. This is a particular type of bias or fallacy, where the tendency to estimate the probability of an event or something happening is based on how many examples really come to the mind or how much you are influenced by it. For example, if there are too many car thefts occurring in your neighborhood and you're watching all of that on the news, you might get wary about your own the safety of your own house and property, because you're actually looking into only those kinds of news on the TV or social media, wherever. So that is the availability heuristic. One more example is that you might believe that plane crashes are more common than they really are if you keep hearing about them in the news all the time. So that's what is the availability heuristic. Whatever is being shown to you, bombarded to you, or whatever comes to your mind, you believe it to be true or highly probable, and that is a major error that everyone encounters every time. We also have something called as the halo effect. The halo, you see the ring that you see over the head on angels. The halo effect. What this means is the tendency to form an initial impression of a person to influence what we think of them overall. To put it simply, it's more like what is beautiful is good principle. In fact, the entire entertainment industry and the media utilizes this halo effect. It's a cognitive bias to influence us day in and day out. For example, you might be following your role model or icon. Could be a sports star, could be a film star, could be a politician, could be anybody. But the thing is, the bias that is generated is done through the initial impression that you gather about that particular person. For example, thinking that people who are good looking are also smarter. Now that's an error. It could be true as well as untrue, but as a bias, it is not correct. Or say believing products marketed by film stars are really good or of better value. Again, that's a bias which is being exploited by the advertising industry all the time. And the one factor that can bring about or influence the halo effect is our tendency to want to be correct, and that is the reason we go with initial impressions about someone who appeared positive, and we do not go further to investigate or look for proof. We simply start believing our first impression about that particular person or a thing. That's what the halo effect is all about. I think that was enough of theory. you can have a look at a few real-world examples that I've compiled from the internet. Please have a look at it and enjoy.
More and more dentists have recommended Colgate Sensitive Pro Relief toothpaste.
It works instantly and the results last.
I've seen the results. It's more effective.
Here's how it works. Colgate Sensitive Pro Relief tackles the root cause of sensitivity by blocking the open channels that lead to the tooth center. Colgate Sensitive Pro Relief, it gives better results.
Colgate Sensitive Pro Relief. Instant relief and long-lasting protection. Colgate.
What was going through your mind? How amazed were you to see your roadster up there with Starman just cruising along with the Blue Planet? And how long will we be getting live views, do you think, from the car?
Well, I think it looks so ridiculous and impossible. And you can tell it's real because it looks so fake, honestly.
It doesn't exist, folks. They beat us all the time. When do we beat Mexico at the border?
All right.
What else?
The Ryder Cup team is declining our invitation to come to the White House.
You're kidding.
Because of the joke.
You're kidding.
I'm not.
The Ryder Cup team.
It's a group of the best golfers in the country.
I know what the Ryder Cup team is. Thanks, Mrs. Lanningham.
Sir, this may be a good time to talk about your sense of humor.
I've got an intelligence briefing, a security briefing, and a 90-minute budget meeting all scheduled for the same 45 minutes. You sure this is a good time to talk about my sense of humor?
No.
Me neither.
What else?
It's just that it's not the first time it's happened.
I know.
Talking about Texas, sir?
I know.
USA Today asks you why you don't spend more time campaigning in Texas, and you say it's because you don't look good in funny hats.
It was big hats.
What difference does it make?
It makes a difference.
The point is we got whomped in Texas.
We got whomped in Texas twice.
We got whomped in the primary, and we got whomped in November.
I think I was there.
And it was avoidable, sir.
CJ, on your tombstone, it's going to read post hoc ergo propter hoc.
Okay, but none of my visitors are going to be able to understand my tombstone.
27 lawyers in the room. Anybody know post hoc ergo propter hoc? Josh?
Post, after hoc, ergo, therefore. After hoc, therefore, something else hoc.
Thank you. Next.
Well, if I got more credit on the 443 thing.
Leo.
After it, therefore, because of it.
After it, therefore, because of it. It means one thing follows the other, therefore it was caused by the other. But it's not always true. In fact, it's hardly ever true. We did not lose Texas because of the hat joke. Do you know when we lost Texas?
When you learned to speak Latin?
Go figure.
I'm still hungover from the Christmas party yesterday. Thanks, by the way, for choosing that restaurant and location. We appreciate that. How did you like it? Was it a good choice that you made in your view?
Well, I would say I'm proud of my choice. I mean, the location, the decoration, the food, the drinks, it was one of the best Christmas parties we had.
Well, it was too bad. The beer was warm and the food was lousy, but the decoration was nice. You're right.
America is a nation that can be defined in a single word. I was going to put him.
So far, so good. I believe you guys have been enjoying my video till now. Let's come to the main topic of this video, which is actually an excerpt from my book, Ternicode Law of Three. There's a particular chapter which talks about fallacies and errors and how that applies to Ternicode, my concept, as well as leadership. So what you can see on the screen right now is the Ternicode for fallacies and errors. If you want to understand what is Ternicode, you can watch one more video on my book. I'll give you the link in the description below. So let's begin with this part. The Ternicode for fallacies and errors is shown diagrammatically on your screen. Whenever a message has to be sent across, I mean, what is human life without communication? Everything is based on communication. So whenever there is a message that is being sent, only four things can occur. The first thing which everyone wants to happen is that the message is received properly intact and the meaning is conveyed the way we want it to be conveyed. That's the right thing. But what can go wrong? That's what is shown on the screen right now. There can be either miscommunication, misunderstanding, or misrepresentation. Now, what does that mean? miscommunication occurs where the sender is at fault. For example, a kindergarten kid trying to explain the solar system. Would the kid be really able to explain it? No, right? So here the sender of the message is at fault. Or say, for example, a lawyer fielding a case for a known criminal. So the lawyer knows that this particular guy, his or her client, is a criminal, and he or she is fielding for that particular criminal. So here again, the sender would intentionally convey messages that would lead to miscommunication. So that's one example of miscommunication. The second one is misunderstanding, where the receiver is at fault. What does that mean is, for example, primary school kid being taught about, say, sex education. Would a kid who has not yet attained puberty or just attained puberty, would that kid really understand anything about sex? The clear-cut answer, common sense, says that it's no. The kid would apply more of his or her imagination to it than trying to understand the real facts. Another example of this would be the doctor using medical jargons with a patient, like saying that your case is very serious, you have carcinoma of the esophagus. Now, what would the patient understand? He needs to be told that you have something called as throat cancer, right? And so this is called as misunderstanding, where the receiver is at fault. The sender is trying to communicate whatever the sender knows, but the receiver is unable to understand or get the message. That is misunderstanding. The third scenario is about misrepresentation, where the medium itself is at fault. That is, neither the sender nor the receiver, they both are not at fault, but the medium is at fault, which happens day in and day out with the emergence of social media. We know that what happens in the mainstream media and the news, withholding of facts or twisting of the narrative by the media, that is a form of misrepresentation, which is very intentional and done with a purpose, with human involvement. It's not an error here, it's intentional involvement of humans. Another natural or simple example would be two people communicating over their mobile phones, where the network is clogged with noise or jitter, where you're unable to hear each other's words, and there is misrepresentation of the message, where neither the sender nor the receiver are at fault. So when a message doesn't get across the way it is intended to, it can occur only because of these three reasons: miscommunication, misunderstanding, or misrepresentation. So that's the Ternicode for fallacies and errors. And in your day-to-day life, if such a thing occurs, you can very easily identify where is the issue. Was I unable to communicate the message the way I wanted it to be conveyed to the other end or the other party? That is, was there any miscommunication? Or the other party to whom I'm trying to convey the message is unable to get it. So is it a case of misunderstanding, or is there a major issue in the media itself, in the medium itself, where my entire message is getting misrepresented? So once you identify this, you can take actions and improvise on things, and you can avoid problems as well as solve problems if you understand the Ternicode for fallacies and errors. There is one more interesting concept I would want to share with all of you. That is the message manipulation basis. How can a message be manipulated? It can happen by mistake, by somebody's error, or it can also be done intentionally. And you can see an image on the screen. It's like three interlocking gears, namely situation, context, and the audience. Now, these three are very important factors when we're talking about messaging or manipulating the message. Now, let us take the first factor, that is the situation. Now, a situation can be visible or hidden. For example, job interviews. When you are taking a job interview, that is when you are an interviewee, not the interviewer. you are not aware whether it's a real job interview, or are those people, the company people, the HR or the recruiter or the hiring manager, they are just doing a kind of mock interview for whatever reasons. So the situation can be visible or hidden. You may or may not be aware of the situation. That is, things may not be as they appear. So first basic factor or premise is the situation. Second is the context. The context could be real or tweaked. Now, again, giving the example of media, news media is very, very easy. You might have seen these kind of headlines in the newspaper or social media or even your regular TV, etc. Where one headline would say, "Jilted lover kills girlfriend." Now that conveys a different kind of message. The event is the same. The same headline can be tweaked or twisted by writing something like this: "Unidentified black stalker shoots white woman." Now the event or the incident is the same, but the message that is being conveyed, the narrative has been twisted, tweaked or changed. That is the context. So one is the situation, the second thing is the context. Last but not the least is the audience. Audience can have different types of sentiments. The sentiment could be positive, negative or neutral. It's very, very simple to understand this part. For example, students could be attending a lecture. It could be a very, very difficult subject. Maybe they're students of astrophysics. They're trying to understand the theory of relativity or the theory of special relativity of Einstein. Now, the students attending a lecture in a classroom, their sentiment is different from this very same students attending the same lecture in a conference, in a huge seminar. Again, the sentiment would change. Now, let's put the students giving a viva voce exam about the same subject. Again, the sentiment would be different. So depending on the situation, the context and the sentiment of the audience, the message can be manipulated. And if you can understand these things, you will be able to identify the real meaning when a message is conveyed, why it is being conveyed in such a manner, what is the message behind the message that is hidden from you. You'll be able to identify that very easily. So that's it for now, folks. I believe this video was an interesting session and you guys have been able to pick up or learn something from this. If you want to know more about it, I would recommend you to go to Amazon, Flipkart or any other e-commerce site where my book Ternicode Law of 3 is available. You can buy it and keep watching my channel Ahamevyaham. Stay tuned, take care, ciao.